everyone, and welcome back. It's Mindy here today for Lawn Fawn, and I thought I would show you another way that you can use the Let's Toast Pull Tab add-on. This is a really cute idea. You can use this on so many different images and different cards, but I'm just going to focus on the one where we have this cute bunny popping up from behind these carrots. So I'm going to start my card by stamping out some of the images that I want for this. I'm using the Some Bunny stamp set, and I'm picking the 3 rabbits off of there, the little planter box, and then I'm going to have a few of the carrots. Now I do just have the one carrot there, it has the lines on it, and then the little shovel, and then I'll come in later on off camera and I'm going to stamp some more carrots individually. I'm using my MISTI tool to do the stamping. And this is the Lawn Fawn white cardstock, which is great for Copic coloring, and I'm using the Lawn Fawn jet black ink, which is Copic friendly. So I did stamp those twice just so I had a nice solid black line. Now I can come in and start Copic coloring my images. So on this bunny, I am coloring it as if the light source is coming from the left hand side. So I'm adding all of the darker shades to the right hand side of the bunny. I'm using E55, E53, E51, and E50. So I thought this was a really cute light brown color for this. And I did want to note on this particular bunny, I didn't let the ink dry or set very well, so I do have a little bleeding, which typically does not happen, but because I didn't let this sit for very long, I think I just had smeared the ink there with my lightest color. So I did want to note that that was complete user error on my part. I do color my images twice because I am such a kind of a heavy colorer, and that didn't help my situation any. I left it at the moment, but I do come in later in the video and kind of fix it up a little bit. So now I'm moving on to this little hopping bunny, and I'm coloring this one as if my light source is coming from the right hand side. So I added my darker colors to the back of the bunny, the back side of the head, a little bit underneath the belly there, and then I'm just blending it out. Some of these bunnies will actually be hidden, so it isn't that big of a deal if you don't have your blending just right or your shadows in the right place. I just wanted to have kind of that differentiation of color there. And then I can move on to that last bunny there. That looks like he's going to be holding something. And this one, I had colored it as if the light source was coming from the right hand side. So I'm adding all of my shadows, my darker color, the E55, to the left hand side of the bunny, so the left hand side of the face, a little bit underneath the belly and underneath the arm, and then blending those out. And my personal preference of just going over it twice to really smooth out the blend and really kind of deepen those shadow areas a little bit more. Once my bunnies are all colored in, I'm just going to come in with an R20 marker and add that to the ears and then also to the cheeks. I didn't do any blending with it, just added a little bit of that pink. Next, for the carrots, I'm going to use YR68, YR65, and YR61. So I just went in with a light color, the YR61, and then I'm keeping all of the darker areas to the left hand side of the carrot. I really don't think it matters. You could even just color it without any blending of sorts because these are going to be tucked in behind that little planter box anyway, but I just wanted to throw them in there just in case. And then I'm going to come in for the greens, and I'm going to use YG17, YG13, and YG21, just adding those little flicks of color there. Next up, I'm going to color this little planter box, and I'm using E57, E35, and E23. I laid down the E57 first, and I laid that right above my black line of each of those boards, and then I blended out with the rest of the colors, and I did come back in and add another bit of the E57 just to darken it up. For the dirt, I did E77, and then came in with just a couple little dots with the E79. For my little shovel, I used C4 and C2, and for the handle, I was just going to use the R37 and R24, but decided to come in with that R59 just for a little bit more darker color there. Once they are all colored up, I'm going to take the coordinating dies, line those up, hold them with some Post-it note tape and run those through my die cut machine. And then here is a look at all of the die cut images that I'm going to put off on the side for now and work on the rest of my card. So all of these really cute little images. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of create the base of my card. So I'm using the large stitched 4-bar rectangle, and I'm cutting that out of some perfectly plaid paper, and this is just a blue. You could use any color that you want. Next, I'm using Grassy borders with the Cilantro cardstock, and I do cut 2 of them, and then I trimmed them down so they layer on top of each other, and also trimmed it off so they fit on top of that stitched piece of plaid paper perfectly. Next, I'm taking my little planter box, and I'm adding my carrots in there, so I'm starting to build my scene. I needed to figure out which rabbit I was going to have hiding behind the carrots. So I just kind of line up my card a little bit to get an idea. And then I can add this little shovel to one of the bunnies. Next, we're going to start working on our interactive part of the card. So this is the Let's Toast pull tab add-on that I'm just cutting out of some white cardstock. So those are ready. And I have the little piece that goes on top, kind of a decorative with the arrow to show to pull that out. And I'm going to use some scraps from the perfectly plaid paper that I had used and die cut those out. Then I need to create the little slot where we're going to pull this out of. I like to just eyeball mine, and you could really put this anywhere on your card. I wanted this to kind of be more center, so I did eyeball that. Lined up my tab piece so I can cut that little notch out, and I'm going to hold it in place with some Post-it tape and run that through my die cut machine. Now when I had die cut this, I didn't push it all the way to the top, so it didn't cut through all the way. That's perfectly fine. I'm going to fix that by just trimming this out with the scissors, and it's still going to work great. So there's my little notch so that we can pull our slider tab out of. And then I'm just taking my Grassy borders, starting to get an idea of how this is going to slide, where everything is going to go, and where I want the bunny to pop out of. Right now I'm going to go ahead and just add that planter right to one of my Grassy borders. So that's going to stay out of my way. And I just used some lawnfawn liquid glue to hold that down. I'm just slowly prepping my card so I can get the interactive piece ready. This is the bunny that's going to hold the carrot, and he's going to be popping out from behind. So all you should be able to see are his little ears. Once I kind of knew where I wanted my bunny to be, I'm going to take the little strip or the slit that's going to cut out of our card panel here, and this is where our interactive piece is going to be. So I'm just kind of getting an idea, lining that up, and I'll hold it with some Post-it tape and run that through the die cut machine, and that's going to cut out that little slit where we're going to slide the pull tab through. And you can see mine actually kind of cut a little crooked. That's okay, I'm going with it. Now we're going to take our mechanism here, and these have score lines on them, which are hard to see on camera, but you could see perfectly well in person. So that first score line I'm going to fold in, and I just use my bone folder to kind of help flatten that out. And then I'll fold out. So you fold in first with the closest score line, and the second line you fold out. And it's kind of creating this placeholder for your image. Then kind of pinch those two together, slide them through the slit that we just created, and this is going to be our mechanism. So we can slide that up and down. It's working really well. Now you can see I kind of added my bunny there, and that kind of placeholder is a little big. So I'm just pinching those two together and cutting a little bit off, and you can see it slimmed that down for me. So I'll be able to hide that behind my bunny. Then I'll just take some liquid glue and I can add my bunny to it. Pushing down really well, make sure none of that glue seeps through because you don't want it sticking to the card panel. And you can see this is moving great. Even with me kind of cutting it a little crooked, it still worked out really good. Now this is the other piece that we had die cut. This is just to make sure our mechanism stays straight. So I scored along all of the lines, and I'm adding double-sided tape to the back side of the middle piece on this. Then I'll remove the double-sided adhesive, lift up my strip of cardstock, and I'm going to push that down. So right now it's only stuck to the card panel. It's not stuck to that strip of cardstock for our slider. Then I'm going to fold the piece over. I'm going to add some double-sided tape to just that little strip we folded. Remove that backing and fold that over. So the adhesive is only stuck to each other or the card panel, not our strip that moves our bunny. Next, to create our front panel, I'm taking that cilantro piece of cardstock that has the carrots attached to it, and I'm going to add double-sided tape to pop that up. Now, to make sure we have enough room for our bunny holding the carrot, I cut a strip of foam tape and folded it in half. So I'm double layering this. This is really going to give it enough room. Nothing is going to catch when we slide it up and down. So I just add that to the bottom of my grassy borders there. And I can attach that to the front. So I'm just making sure I have enough room. I'm going to test out the bunny. I actually should have trimmed that foam tape down just a little bit more, but it'll still work out this way. So I can remove the backing on the foam tape of this and go ahead and attach it right to the front panel. All right, so now I'm just going to give this a test run. So I'm just going to slide that up and down, make sure that I have enough room for my bunny. And I even kind of look back to make sure that my foam tape isn't getting stuck or my bunny is not going to get stuck on anything. Now, once I'm happy with that, I'm going to make sure my bunny is all the way down as far as it will go. And I'm going to trim off the excess of that slider piece. That way we don't have any of that hanging off. And then I can take the decorative tab that we had created, and it has the little arrow on it. I'm going to add some adhesive to that and stick that right in there, and it's going to match our cardstock perfectly. And just kind of rub off any excess of adhesive that was there. And then I can go ahead and add my top panel of the grassy borders. You could add another strip of foam tape if you wanted here, but I thought that this card had enough dimension to it because I had doubled up my foam tape there. So once I'm happy with all of that, I'm just going to take some double-sided tape, line that at the bottom and a little bit on the sides, and I can attach this to my other piece of the grassy borders cardstock that I had created. Once that's lined up, we can start adding some of our critters. Now, I didn't add adhesive all the way to the top of my grassy borders, and that was so I could tuck this little guy in there so it looks like he's hopping through the grass. Now, my other one, before I attached them, it was really bothering me that my coloring had bled there. So I'm going to fix this up. And I had just taken the same markers that I had used in the beginning when I had colored them, and I'm adding darker color to it. So this one is a little bit darker than my other bunnies, but that did help kind of smooth out that color so it didn't look like my bunny had a black eye. And I was happy with how it turned out. Once I added the little bit of darker colors there wasn't as much shading to it as I would have liked, but I'm happy with the fix. So I was able to save my little bunny. And then I just went back over and blended some of those out so it didn't look so harsh. Once I was happy with how I had him fixed, I can go ahead and add this little cutie to the front of my card. Once this main front panel was decorated, I'm going to go ahead and add foam tape to the back of this. Now, foam tape is just going to help so that our mechanism moves nice and smoothly. And I'm only going to add one layer of foam tape behind this. So I'm going to add it to everywhere on the back of my panel except on my slider piece, and I'm going to make sure it goes on each side of it, but you don't want it touching. Otherwise, it's going to catch and you won't have a smooth slide when your bunny's sliding up and down. So I'll just cut down some of those strips, covering the entire back, but making sure I'm leaving room there. And our bunny still moves great. Now I'm just going to layer this up. So I'll remove the backing of my foam tape, add that to a piece of white cardstock that I had trimmed down. This is going to leave just a nice white edge around everything. And then once I have that situated, I'm going to add this panel to a piece of moonstone cardstock, and I have the moonstone cardstock trimmed down to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it's a perfect A2 size card front. And I'm just adding some double-sided adhesive to attach that. Once this is attached, you can add this to a white card base and write on the inside of the card if you choose. And I'm just going to test this out, make sure my bunny is sliding up and down so he looks really cute with his ears kind of hiding behind the carrots, and then he's popping out with his carrot that he has. Now to add just a little bit more decorating to the front of the card, I decided to die cut some Simply Puffy Clouds from the Pixie Dust cardstock. And what that does is creates an outline of the clouds. So once I die cut it, I'm going to put it off on the side, and I need a sentiment for the front of my card. So using a strip of the Moonstone cardstock, I just prepped that with an anti-static powder tool, and using the Lawnfawn clear ink, which is an embossing ink, I'm stamping this little sentiment that says, "I care about you," which I thought was really sweet. And then I can go ahead and just add some white embossing powder to this. So I'll sprinkle that on, shake off the excess, and then heat that up with my heat tool. I just take a static cloth, Swiffer static cloth, and rub that over. That just removes any of the powder that might have been left over from our anti-static powder bag. And then using the sentiments banner, I'm going to die cut out my sentiment so it just cuts it into a nice cute little strip. Now we're in the final stages of finishing off the card. So these are the outlines from the Simply Puffy Clouds. And what I'm doing, I wanted all 3 to be on here, so I trimmed off one edge, and using the lawnfawn glue and my tweezers, I'm going to attach that to the one side. I think just kind of gives it more of a complete look, so it's not the whole cloud on there, it's just a piece of it, kind of almost a more realistic looking landscape. And I'll do the same thing to the other side, and I'll just attach that with the lawnfawn glue, add that to the left hand side of the card. And I will take the little one and I'm going to just layer that right on top. And this is just enough where there's some clouds in the sky, but it's not taking away from my actual scene of the card. And finishing it off with that sentiment strip on the bottom. So I really hope you enjoyed taking a look at another way to use the Let's Toast pull tab add-on. There's so many different critters and different ideas you could do with this, and this cute little bunny just popping up with his carrot in his hand with a little surprise for you, I thought was really fun. So I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.